In this video of JavaScript, we are going to start the iteration statements, normally called as loops. In the basic programming, it is a very obvious situation like we come across a thing where we need to execute some set of statements continuously multiple times, probably with the different values. For example, if I want to find the even numbers from 1 to 100, what I need to do is I will have to write the code for checking the even or odd again and again. But rather than writing the same code again and again, I can put this particular code inside a loop which will provide various values, means different values from 1 to 100 continuously. And inside the loop, we will check the condition. If the number is even, we will print that. So such things can be done by the iteration statements, as this is a statement which allows the execution of a particular set of block code multiple times or several times. Whenever you will write a loop, you will have to pass a condition so that until and unless that particular condition is true, the loop will keep on executing, and as soon as it is false, the loop will get terminated. For example, as I said, I want to find all the even numbers from 1 to 100. So it is a condition like the number or the value of I of whichever variable I am using, that should be less than or equal to 100. As soon as the value will exceed from the 100, the loop must get terminated. So this is what it's written here, keeps on executing until a given condition is true. So whenever you will start writing these control statements, whether it is the conditional statements or iteration statements, logically as per your requirement, you can make them nested to any level. Here is the basic idea how the iteration statements or loop get executed. So here, this is the control flow. There must be a condition. If the condition is true, then we will execute the conditional code and the control will again come to this condition. So unless and until this condition is returning true, this loop will keep on executing. As soon as the condition is false, it will get terminated. If there is any logical error, you may write an infinite loop which will not be able to come out of this iteration. Logically, you can classify the loops in three different types, that is for, while and do while, which we will be discussing in our later videos practically as well. But all these loops would be having the similar thing which we discussed right now, that it will allow the set of statements to get executed iteratively multiple times. So in our next video onwards, we'll start with the implementation of them. Now let's get started with the for loop. As in the previous videos, we have already discussed the basic functionality and the basic feature of the iteration statements, that is, it will keep on executing unless and until a given condition is true. So the same feature will be followed by the for loop as well. But what's the speciality? The speciality is for loop should be used when the number of iterations are known. For example, if I want to find the even numbers from 1 to 100, I know that I need to execute the loop from 1 to 100. In this particular case, I can go for this for loop. But whatever I am saying here is just the ideal things. But if you know how to play with the loops, and that will come with the practice of course, you can replace any loop with any other loop anytime in your programming. Alright, so let's first get through with this for loop. As here you can see the syntax of it. Inside this for, you can see it is being classified into three different parts. That is, first is the initialization, second is the condition, and third one is the increment. So whenever you will begin this particular loop, as I said, the number of iterations should be known. So here I will initialize the value. Let's say I will initialize the variable I with 1. That is the initial thing. Condition means the finishing point, when you want your loop to be terminated. That condition will come here. So here I will write something like I is less than or equal to 100, means that is the condition. Unless and until the I value is less than or equal to 100, it will keep on executing. And increment, since I is 1 and it needs to go till 100, I need to keep on incrementing the value. I have to increase the value every time I am running this loop. So for that, it is increment. You can also take it in a reverse way, like I started with 100, I need to drag it till 0 or 1, and for that I will decrease the value. So it's all conditional as per your requirement, and inside this you will write the code. So this is how you can write a for loop. Now how it will execute. First of all, the initialization thing will execute. It will initialize a particular variable with any particular given value. Before entering to the body of the for loop, it will check the condition. If the condition is true, only then this code block will get executed. If the condition is false in the very first time, it will not execute at all. Alright, so the condition, if it is true, then the code block will execute, and then it's increment. Increment means after executing the complete body, it will again go to this particular section where the increment will be taking place. Now after increment, again before entering into the body, it will check the conditions. Alright, so this thing will keep on executing unless and until the condition is true, and as soon as it is false, the code will get terminated or the loop will get terminated. Alright, so let's execute this particular loop practically. So in this implementation, you can see I have written a for loop in which there are 3 parts as I discussed earlier. Here it's the initialization part in which I am initializing the value of I with 1. After that, it's a condition, means I want this loop should keep on executing itself unless and until this condition is true. So unless and until the value of I is either lesser or equal to 10, I want this loop to be executed. And how the value of I will reach from 1 to 10, I'll have to make the incrementation, and so for that, here is the I++. This plus operator will be increasing the value of I every time with 1. So what will happen basically, at the very first time when the control will come in this loop, this will be initialized with 1, and then the value of I will be compared with this condition. If this condition is satisfied, only then the control will come inside the loop body and these set of statements will get executed, where I am just printing the value of I along with the breaking the line. Once all the statement of this loop body will execute, then the control will go to the increment part and it will increase the value of I with 1, means the 1 will become 2, and again before entering the loop we will check the condition, and this process will keep on going unless and until there is a condition satisfaction. As soon as the condition will be false, this loop will get terminated. So let's see the output of this program. As here you can see, I is equal to 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So as I said in the description as well, like we will use this for loop when we know like the condition, the number of executions are known. So here I am starting it from 1, I am taking it till 10. So it's obviously sure like I want this loop to execute from 1 to 10. If I want to make the increment more than 1, like I++ is just an increment statement, you can use any increment statement what you want. So here what I'll do is I say I plus equals to 2. That means here I'm incrementing the value of I with 2. So now when I will refresh it, you see I is 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 and so on. Now let's take one more example, like I want all the even numbers from 1 to 100 and I want the sum of all those even numbers. So what I'll do is I starts with 1, I is executing till I is less than or equal to 100. I will just make an increment by 1 only, so I++. And now inside, since this is the statement, you can actually use any statement inside this. So I will inject the if statement inside and I'll say I mod 2 is equal to 0. If the modulus of value of I with 2 will be 0, modulus means the remainder. So if you will divide any number with 2 and the remainder is 0, I will say that is the even number. So what I'll do is I'll simply put these statements inside the if statement. Alright, so I'll just pass the delimiters like that. Alright. Okay. So it will print all the even numbers, something like this. Like here you can see 2, 4, 6, 8 and so on. Now, if you want to add all those numbers, so for that what I'm doing is I'm just taking one more variable for summing them up and I will initialize them all with 0. So what will happen here, whenever any prime number, any even number will be there, so I'll simply say sum is equal to sum plus I. That means whatever value is there in the I will add them up in the current value of sum and then I will update the new value of sum as well. For example, sum is 0. Now, if I is coming inside this for the first time, the value of I would be 2. So, the current value of sum is 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So, that 2 will be assigned to the sum. The value of sum also becomes 2. Now, the next time when the control will come inside this condition, the value of I would be 4. So, what will happen? Here it will do current value of sum is 2 and I is 4. 2 plus 4 is 6 and now the value of sum will become 6. So likewise it will keep on executing till the value is of this I is 100. Now outside this loop what I can do, I can simply print the value of sum with the message like total and then concatenate. And before executing, let's remove this line break also. So now let's see the output and here you can see it's 2550. That's the sum of all the even numbers from 1 to 100. Similarly, we can also find the factorials like that. So let me take a number for that. For example, I will take it num is equal to parse int and here I'll use the prompt box, enter a number like that. Alright, and now what I'll do, I'll just start the execution from 1 till that particular number. Alright, and in factorial what we have to do, we have to multiply the numbers. So I'll have to do the product. So I will start the product with 1 because if you will multiply with 0, every number will become a 0. So pass int prompt and then enter a number. So here I am taking a number in this num. So what I'll do is I will start it from 1. You can also start with 2 also because if you multiply anything with 1 it will remain the same. So it's all up to you. And now I'll just remove this condition and inside this what I'll do, I'll say product is equal to product into num. Alright, I'll have to pass I here. Alright, because num is the maximum limit. So let's execute this and here now you will get the correct answer. Like I entered 5 and it is coming 5 into 5 is 120. The factorial of 5 is 120. Like what it is doing, 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. Similarly, if you will do it for 6, it's 720. Alright, so this is how you can plan of using this for loop in which there will be a variable which will be taking a value from a starting point to the ending point, and every time when I'm using this for loop I know the exact number of executions.
Now let's get started with the while loop. Since it is also a loop, would be having all the common features like any other loop, but the question is what is the difference?
As in the for loop, we should know the number of iterations. It is not that particular in case of while loop. So basically we will use the while loop when a program is having its own condition and I want to execute a loop until that condition is true. For example, if I want to walk from my office to my home, I don't know how many steps exactly I need to take, but I will keep on walking unless and until I reach my destination, my home. So the similar situation will occur with the while loop also, where the exact number of execution will not be known, but we will execute this loop till a particular condition. For example, if I want to find the 100 prime numbers starting from 1, so I exactly don't know which is the 100th prime number. Alright, so in such situations I can go for the while loop. But as I said earlier in the previous video, if you are very comfortable with the loops, anytime you can replace one loop with the another. It is just the ideal statements I am talking about. So here's the syntax, like a while keyword right after a condition which must be returning a boolean, and then a conditional code. So this is how a very simple syntax. Alright, you can write this code and how it will execute. Let's see that. So first of all, the condition will be checked. If it is true, code block, and so it will keep on executing. As soon as the condition is false, the loop will get terminated. But it is something more than that. Let's see practically and do that.
Here in the implementation of while loop, I have written a program in which I am counting the digits of a number. So for the number, I am taking the user input using the prompt box, and whatever will come, I'll convert it to the integer using this parse int method. For counting, I have taken a counter variable which is initialized with 0, and here it's a condition like while num is greater than 0. I'm not passing any number of iterations here in this program. So let's see how this program will work like here. So let's say in the user input I entered a 4-digit number like 5432, and obviously the counter is initialized with a 0. Now when this condition will be checked, like 5432 is greater than 0, obviously it is greater than 0, so it will come inside, the control will come inside, and what it will do, it will divide the number with 10. So when you will divide the 5432 with 10, it will become 543.2. Alright, let's pass a comment. Alright, now so 543.2, and actually I don't want to take this decimal number. That's why what I have done, I have used the math.trunc method, which will truncate the number to the lower digit to the 0th decimal places. So it will become 543, and now the increment will be done in the counter. It will become 1 from 0. Now this loop will run again. So 543 is the current value of num, which is still greater than 0. Again it will come inside and will divide with 0, will truncate the decimal part, and then it will become 54. It will become 2. Next time when this condition will be checked, this is still greater than 0, control will come inside, and it will become 5.4, which will truncate it by 5, and the counter is again working fine. Now the next time it will do this particular thing, 5 is divided by 10, so it will become 0.5, and again when it will be truncated, it will become a 0, and the counter will be incremented by 1, and it will become 4. Now when this condition will be checked, so num is having 0 now, so 0 is not greater than 0, so this loop will be terminated, and outside I am printing the value like digits is the value of count, and count is having 4 in this situation. Alright, so let's execute this program and see how the output is looking like. So here let's say I am entering 6-digit number. Alright, so when I will execute it, it's showing 6. Alright, if I enter 4-digit number, it's saying 4. So this is all about the while loop. So as I said in the description also, we don't know how many times a loop is going to execute. This is a loop, and as per the requirement, it is changing the number of cycles. If I'm entering a 6-digit number, the same loop is running for 6 times. If I'll enter a 2-digit number or 1-digit number, it will execute it to that number of time. So this is all about the syntax and the concept of while loop.
Now let's begin with the do while loop. Do while loop is actually having something different than any other loop we have learned. Do while loop basically checks the condition after the loop execution. That means at least the loop will get executed once, and after the one execution it will check the condition. If it is true, it will execute it again, otherwise it will get terminated. So as you can see here, it's do conditional code, and after the conditional code in the while you can add the condition, alright, and that must be terminated with the semicolon also, alright, that is mandatory. So here is the code block and then a condition. If false, it will get terminated. If true, it will keep on executing. So as it is written, do while loop is guaranteed to execute at least one time, alright. So because the reason is the condition is being checked after first execution. Basically you can plan working with the do while loop whenever you want to execute the loop on the basis of user interaction. For example, if you are taking some user input, suppose I am writing a ATM code, a user at least has to enter the PIN number once. If it enters correct, I don't have to ask again, but if it is entering the incorrect PIN number, I will have to ask again, but at least the loop should be executing once. So such loops can be planned using the do while loop. And now let's see practically how can we write a basic code using do while.
So here it's an implementation of a do while loop. As I said earlier, like do while loop will be used when we want to execute a loop as per the user's interaction. So what I want here I'm taking a PIN number from the user, and 3456 I have considered is the correct PIN which I am seeking from the user. So unless and until he will enter this particular PIN, I'll keep on asking the PIN number. But if the number of attempts, the count of number of attempts is greater than 3, then I will not ask it again. Means maximum 3 attempts will be given to the user. If in either of those 3 attempts user entered the correct PIN, I will stop asking him and I will welcome him with the welcome message. If all the 3 attempts he has entered is invalid, then I'll give a message account logged. So for doing that, what I have done here is the actual PIN, a PIN variable in which I'll ask the user input, and the counter. Now inside this do, as here you can see the syntax, after do it's the delimiters. Inside this you can put all the logical code in which I'm asking for the PIN number, and every time I'm asking, I'm incrementing the counter by 1. Now here you can see, unless and until the PIN is not same and the counter is less than 3, means the first time it is 0, then when the first time this loop will execute, the counter will become 1, then 2 and 3. So by the third implementation, here you can see this condition will be false, and here as you can see it's an AND operator. If any one of the condition is false, then this loop will be terminated. So let's see how this output will look like here. So like here I'm saying enter your PIN, let's enter 1234, 1234, and last time also 1234. All the 3 attempts I entered invalid, so I got a message account logged. If I will enter the correct in the third attempt, like let's say 3456, it will give a message welcome user, and if in the first attempt only I give the message, it will say welcome user, it will not ask again. So this is how you can work with the do while loop, in which the first time the execution will be there for the show, and as per the user interaction on the first time we will plan like whether we should go for this loop again or not. So this is the very basic implementation of do while loop.
Now we are going to cover few more keywords and statements which may control the execution of a loop. So far we have covered the for, while and do while loop, and in all these three loops we have seen like there is a condition, and as soon as the condition is false we terminate the loop. But if apart from that you want to do some manipulations in the execution of a loop, you can go for the loop control statements such as break and continue. You have already seen the usage of break keyword in the switch, where after each case and default we have applied this break keyword in order to terminate the switch statement. Very similarly, we will be using this break keyword to terminate the loops as well, as this is the condition. When this condition is false, the loop will get terminated. But apart from that, if any time during the execution of the loop, if there is a break statement that get executed, it will also terminate the execution of a loop, whether the condition is still true or false. Maybe the break would be having its own condition that you can pass inside the loop. So this break either will terminate the switch statement, which we have already seen, and it can also terminate the loops now, which we'll see in this execution. But before that, let's talk about continue as well, as break terminates the execution of a loop, while continue only skips a particular cycle. Means this is the loop which is getting continuously executed, but meanwhile if there is any continue statement is there, it will skip the execution of all the conditional code of that loop. So let's see practically how can we implement the break and continue statements.
So in this program I have written a for loop which is starting from 1 and will run till 10. So if I'll execute this particular loop, obviously I'll get the numbers printed from 1 to 10. So let's check it out first. So here in the browser I'll open this particular file and you can see, alright, 1 to 10. Let me do the line break as well along with that. So br along with this. Alright, let's refresh. Alright, so this is my desired output. But if I will introduce any loop control statement in that, so obviously the output will be differ. So let's execute that, and here I'll pass a condition like if I is equal to 5, then I'll say break. Alright, so here as I discussed what this break statement will do, it will terminate the loop. So when I will become 5, the loop will be terminated and obviously the execution will be stopped out there itself. So if I'll execute, you see, even though I have written the loop from 1 to 10, but since I have introduced the break statement when I was equal to 5, this particular output is looking like this. Means it will just running for 4 times, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this is about the break, and the similar thing it was doing at the time we introduced this break statement in this switch, where when any of the case was satisfied, the execution was terminated because of this break statement, and none of the case was checked inside that switch again. But if apart from this break I'll introduce a continue statement, so what this will do, it will just skip the cycle. Means I'm running this loop from 1 to 10. So if I'll say I is equal to 5, then continue, so that means this loop means this particular statement will be skipped when I was equal to 5. So this is how the output will look like. So as you can see, 1 2 3 4 6 7 8 9 10, 5 got skipped. Similarly, if you will add multiple conditions out here like I is equal to 7, so 7 is also skipped. So this is how you can use the break and continue statement in order to control the execution of any loops that we have covered, that is for, while and do while.